Hi all, this is Ashish. Welcome all to the first meetup after the COVID. This is a Golang specific meetup, and we are very happy to have you all, guys. I think we have two dynamic speaker with us. We have two tracks, mostly who are going to cover the Go generics and the interfaces. So I'm very pretty excited and hope you guys also excited, and if you want to ask anything, question and answer, just use the YouTube chat. We are live there, and the speaker will answer on the chat itself. Without wasting the time, let's start with our first session of day. I'll call Rajendra to join the stream. Just a minute. So we have a Rajan with us, and he's going to present on the specifically on the Go interfaces. So Rajan, the stage is yours, and yeah,
Okay.
you can
Thank you,
start.
Ashish. Okay. Uh, my today's talk will be around Go and the interfaces part, and what my experience about Go up till now. So that's something I'll try to cover it, and there are certain good practice that I want to, cover. Generally, what happens Go is uh, recently new. I won't say new, almost a decade old language, but still, when a newbie like me, say for example, a year back, if he joins, then interface is like a very complicated uh, term, and there are like many people who just gets bogged down by that. So we'll try to cover basics of interface and when and how to use them. When as a junior who is getting started with Go, this is very important thing to start in the right direction. So that's something I'll try to cover. The audience I'm expecting, they should have a basic understanding of Go fundamentals, and then I can like maybe talk about them on interface part. So yeah, let's start, and I'll just like try to see say what is a good code, first of all. So if you see that like the heading of the talk is writing a good code uh, using interfaces. So let's take the first part of the sentence, or the title is what is a good code. So in my like total industry experience, whatever I have, I'm working as a senior software engineer at G Digital in a platform engineering team, and where I've been using Go since like couple of years now, uh, and having written a production grid application. uh, we have like got to know, like I have got an experience of writing a good code. So I'll summarize my experience when I started as a newbie, and how the code reviews that you have with your seniors that helps you in getting into the right production grid uh, coding. So yeah, coming back to the point, what is a good code? So any code which is like which is easily readable and understandable for anyone who is referring to your code. So what I'm trying to say is your code has to be very easily readable and understandable. So when you're working with a team, your work, whatever you have done, is most likely be shared and referred by someone, your fellow team member. So if your code is lacking readability, and it doesn't have a proper understanding, be it commands or the way you structure your functions, and those kind of things, it will be very difficult for your peers to actually reuse and understand. Even in case of in during reviews, it will be difficult for both of you. So that's where your code readability and understandability comes into picture. So like there are two couple of thumb rules which I got from my seniors are like, avoid larger functions. That's the most important thing that you should do. Don't create large functions. Like try to break functions into meaningful small chunks, and that's how then you can like actually start making sense of your code. Then the second part is create packages. So why packages? Say when you're writing a code, if you write a code in a modular way, and if you create them in the form of package, those can be easily reusable by you as well as your team. So try to always see when you're writing piece of code, see if that can be reusable within that project, or can be, if it's a too common functionality, see if it can be used across the project. So when you start writing your code in your office or in your project, think about those kind of things. Second thing is, which is most important again, I feel, is how much extendable your code is. So uh, a very good example, if you're writing something, say you're writing a feature for your project, and say maybe a couple of sprint down the line, you come to know that, okay, that there are some more features coming up in a pipeline, and you just have to add some features, or you want to just enhance the existing features. So if your code is not extendable enough, if you haven't taken care of that, then it's a nightmare. You will spend a lot of time in refactoring the existing code in order to just extend it. So start with the correct thing. Think about whether you can extend your code if you come back, maybe a couple of sprint or a month in future. So that's important. Those are two important things that I feel any engineer who is gearing up for the mm, uh, a good programmer, those two things are must. Third thing is, yes, most of the developers, including me, I used to run away from test cases. Get So that's very important thing. People just overlooks writing unit test cases. One of my senior who always used to scold me that your code is not, or your task is not completed unless or until you have written the complete unit test cases. And this is very important when you're writing a unit test cases. That's like a blessings in disguise that force you to write a code in a correct way. When I say correct way, you cannot write unit test cases where you have to mock external calls. So that's where you start writing, thinking about how can I write this code in a decoupled manner, because you have to write your test case for it, right? You have to write mocks for your database calls, you have to mock maybe your HTTP calls, whatever. So then you have to think, when you are writing your code, you should think about all these three things first. Your code has to be readable and understandable by you and your peers. That will help you in review meetings, and get through those things, or get through your PRs merge very quickly. Second thing is, your code has to be extendable. So like the
Sorry for interrupt. Are you sharing your slides or something?
I have not prepared
Okay.
any slides. Okay, yeah.
Okay, not an issue. Yeah, I thought there is a slide, so sorry for interruption. You can carry
No
on,
problem,
please.
no problem. What I'm thinking is, like, this is something which I prepared a notes,
Oh,
just like back
of
of my
course.
mind. Once I start with them, I'll actually share the
Yeah,
screen
yeah,
and
yeah.
we'll
Please,
talk
please,
about the
please go ahead. Go
interfaces.
ahead. Yeah. Sorry for
Uh,
interruption, guys.
no problem. Do we have any questions up till now?
Not yet. Please go ahead.
Okay, yeah, sure. Thank you. So yeah, like, just to summarize these three things for any fellow developers who are trying to learn Go, and want to actually get more productive in your enterprise projects. These three things are most important. Having said that, let's see, actually start and dive into the today's topic of interfaces. That is the interfaces part. And even when I started Go, if you start Go, under, like, learning Go is pretty easy. There are not many complex topics to get through. To write your first program, it's very easy. To install, get started. But at the same time, you have to understand good practices. And this thing starts when how you write a product, like how you write a modular code. And interface is a very key concept when you start writing your you know modular code. So I'm assuming people have understanding of methods and structs and in Go. So without wasting much time on them, we'll actually start talking about the interfaces. I have, like, for today's talk, I have three demos which I have planned, in the interest of time, and avoid the last minute issues. I have pre-coded them and I've stored them in my GitHub repository. I have local setup. So we'll go through those three demos. I'll be explaining what I have written, what my approach was, and why I have done it. And will, like, definitely you can feel free to raise your questions, concerns. looking for someone who actually can correct me and rectify my code, whatever I put in. So yeah, let's then start with. I hope I'm sharing my IntelliJ. Ashish, can you confirm that once?
Yep. Cool. Your screen is shared.
Yes, so I'm sharing my ID, and I'll be explaining one simple example of an interface. Uh, and I'll try to explain the significance of interface. And if we don't have an interface in this particular piece of code, what will be the difference? So if you need, I can increase the font size of my. Just increase it. Is it properly visible, Ashish? Because I don't know.
Yeah, I think Rahul has raised this. Yeah, Rahul, can you confirm in the chat? Is it visible? I think it's a perfect font. But yeah, please confirm.
Yep.
I think yeah, you can continue. But
Sure.
Rahul can confirm on the chat. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Ashish. Yeah. So we'll just we'll just go through the example and see what I have tried to achieve. Basically, this is a program where actually I'm trying to calculate. There are two objects. First of all, one is a permanent object, and other is a contractor object. These are basically like two type of employees I have. One is a permanent employee, another is a contractor employee, and we are trying to calculate their salaries. Okay, very simple program, nothing fancy. We'll come back to this interface type later, but just now just assume the crux of this problem is we have two objects. One is permanent employee, and another is contractor employee, and we have methods on them which are calculate salary. So if you look at the permanent object or permanent employee object, it has base pay plus PF. So these are the two things, and employee ID as well. And similarly for the contractor employee, we have an employee ID and a basic pay. So it doesn't have a PF component in it, and that's a deciding factor. Okay. Uh, so let's take an example. How are we calculating a simple salary? So say for example, you have to write a function to calculate a salary. Uh, so I have written a method because I want to receive an object of type permanent employee. So this is how I'm actually defining a method on the permanent object. Since it's a method on the object permanent, I can directly access the attributes of it. And I want to return the salary as base pay plus PF. So that will become my total salary for a permanent employee. And on this other hand, I have a same method, calculate salary on a contractor employee, which in case it's just a base pay that I'm going to return. uh, and once these methods are defined, I want to call them. So let's set up the uh, ground in the main function. So I have I have initialized two employees just for the example purpose. And then what I have done is I have written a function which actually you know takes any object of type either permanent or contractor and returns, like prints me the salary of whatever you have object, whatever the employee was. So right now what I have done is, if you see the function expense details definition, it accepts an object employee of type expense calculator. If you see, that's an interface. Okay. And the beauty here with the interface object type object is, if you see this interface, it has this method enclosed, which is calculate salary. So what this interface tells me, I know about a method which is of type this. I mean, it knows the definition of this calculate salary method. So you give me an object which satisfies this, which has already implemented the method. I'll take care of calling the function, getting the output to you. So that's where the beauty of interface comes in. If you see here, I'm just passing a object of type permanent employee to the expense detail because it satisfies this interface. I mean, it has also implemented this calculate salary method, as well as the contractor employee also has a method on this. So your expense detail function doesn't need to worry about it. It'll, like, you just have to pass in the object, whichever object you have, and it'll just give you the salary. So if you see the benefits of interfaces, it avoids code reusability. Sorry, yeah, exactly. It avoids code repeatability. And this is a very simple example where actually see the interface and how you can use it. So if you have to take a crux out of this, any object you can onboard. Say in future we may have any other like objects of type say xyz, and they can, if they satisfy this method, you just have to write your own implementation of this calculate salary and call this expense detail with that object, with that type of object. It can be any type of employee. You just have to have this method, that's all, and this employee expense detail function will take care of it. uh, that's a very simple example of interface. uh, any questions up till now do we have?
I think not yet.
Any
I
questions
think no
before
question
we?
as of now. We can continue.
Okay, yeah. So this is very simple example of interface. Uh, so you won't like much get the crux of it, but I'll talk about another one, so about some little complex example where I have, which I myself wrote almost a couple of years back. And without having a knowledge of interfaces, how to use them, where to use them. So I'll just like showcase that how bad that was. And definitely I didn't write any unit test case at that point of time, but after learning go for a while, and I follow Alex Edwards. He's a very good guy who actually talks about uh, very good topics in Go. So if you are around and if you want to learn more about Go, I'll definitely recommend the blogs by Alex Edward. I'll pin them in the link at the end of the talk. So let's see the uh, little more complex example, and there we'll try to highlight uh, the importance of interface here. So this is an example. I just got it, and let me tell you the crux of this example. So what it does is basically uh, there is a web, like there's a web handler I have written. Okay, and I have basically have exposed an endpoint employee. If you hit this employee endpoint, what it does is it goes to database and it gets the employee details. Okay, so we have a method returns on employee object. Basic, simple. Again, say if anyone comes to you and asking you in your company, say, give me like the list of employees that are working in currently in the company. So by keeping that in mind, I have written a simple example. We'll just go through this and see what are the drawbacks that it has, and then I'll show you another example, which is like modified version of this code, where actually see uh, how those problems which are currently here are solved. So I'll just quickly walk you through this. I have a variable for a SQL database uh, to which I want to connect to the backend. This is an employee type object which I'm referring in parsing my SQL queries and all. I'll be using PQ and libpq and database driver for SQL, which is available in Go. I'm using zero log to log events and standard NetStream package to host the web server and expose the endpoint. Very simple, small example. So if you see, this is an employee, which this is my function handler, which accept when gets a request or when it's being invoked, it calls get employee, which is written over here. Basically, it does nothing. If you see, the crux of this method is, or the function is, it connects to the database and does select star on the table and gets parse those details that it has got from the select star query and returns you the employee details. So that's what it does. It gets you the list, and if there is any error, I'm returning the error. That if something goes wrong, definitely I don't want to tell the error to the user, so I'll be terminating with the error 500. That is internal server error. If not, I'll be printing the list. Okay, I have a database already set up uh, purpose, and I have already have the data in place. So I'll just try to run this code and show you that it works. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. So yes, the code is the program is running, and let's try to hit this endpoint. We are running on 8484 port. So I was already trying this. So let's see if it works. Okay, yeah, it works. So, and to confirm that, I can employ this. I'm inside a Docker container where I have posted my PSQL database. So these are the things that I get when I actually do the database query. That's not the important point of current discussion. What important point is what are the things that can be improved in this code. So we will talk about them here. So if you see, first thing in this code is it's not really modular. When I say modular, everything is written inside main.go, which is bad. You should not write this kind of things when you're actually writing a code in your company. It has to be always modularized. Your main has to do only certain specific amount of things and not garbage of everything. So that's one bad point. It's not really modular. Uh, it's not really scalable for the same obvious reason. I have put in everything inside the main. So if anyone has to refer this, there is no direct package because I haven't created any package. So if someone wants to use it, he cannot directly use it. Okay, that's again second bad point. Yes, there is one more bad point. If you see, this is my get employee functions, which gets called at line number when I invoke a handler. Okay, so what it does is always tries to connect to a database. So what I have done wrong is I've actually put that connection logic to the database into my business logic. So here in this case example, the business logic that I'm writing is in the get employee function. What that does is give me the total employee list. That's all. So this is something we need to avoid. Your database connections, your log initialization, or whatever connection that you are trying to make with your third party things, those should be decoupled from your business logic. Okay, and we'll see how we can actually solve them in the better cases in the later demo. So the point number three is, yes, your database connections or any third party connections, if you're maintaining connections with cache or any queues, those has to be initialized and kept outside of this main. So that's third one. If you want to, okay, yes, then if you see the database, yes, yeah. So if you see at line number 11, I have a database which is global. There can be cases where in the exceptional cases, yes, global variables are allowed, but try to avoid as much as possible. The reason why why this is very dangerous is, say for example, this being a DB, which is a live connection to the database, and it's a global one. If someone else, or if me myself future try to add some more method in this already pretty bad code, uh, since I'm using a global reference of the database connection, I might break certain things. Even for that matter, say if I'm defining a global variable at a package level, it wherever it has been used right now, it just being in it's being used in only one places. But assuming this, if this would have been some complex structure and I'm initializing it as a global variable, and if someone wants to change the schema or modify this object, it has a huge impact because a lot of places that has been used, and you cannot go to each and every place and change it. So yes, the rule number 4 is do not create global variables. Okay, I think I covered pretty much what I saw was not wrong. Yes, the fifth one point is writing unit test cases are very difficult here. Simple reason I can tell you is uh, it is not decoupled. So if I have to write unit test cases for, say, my business logic, I have to actually see who is calling this guy. So this being called by an employee details, which is actually directly depend on my web call, which is line number 23, which is my actually net HTTP handler. So basically, if I have to test just my database connection, which is like actually which is actually my business logic, I have rigid coupling between my database interaction with my handler. So this becomes very difficult because in it, like if I have to test it, I cannot test it locally because I can't mock this kind of things here. It'll be like there is no database, like, there is no data dependency injection being followed. So it becomes very tightly coupled thing and very difficult to actual write unit test cases which are independent of the other module. So yeah, and in the next demo which I tried to finish before this meetup, and we'll see how that, like how this all drawbacks that we have uh, overcome. Any questions up till now? Any questions, not maybe from the code, but if you have any in general questions, I'll wait for a couple of minutes if someone has any questions.
I have a few doubts, Rajendra. So, first of all, a wonderful explanation on the interfaces. I think that we can use to write, when we have to write a database adapters for the applications.
Yes.
So, like we have to use multiple database, like a MySQL, Mongo, whatever, and we can just write one generic, the adapter by using our interfaces, and then we can give that package to the team where they can
Exactly.
directly use.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
whenever we need, we can just change the database whenever we need, and
Backend.
we don't need to touch the whole code. So that is the beauty of the interfaces. This is one of the example, but you guys can use as per your requirement. The My doubt is how to share the as you were given the SQL connection, how to share the database connection across the package. So let's suppose in one package I have created one database connections, or I have one package like the name is connections, and now every developer has to leverage that library, and he has to use that connection in their project. So how he can use that?
Okay, yeah, it's a very good question, and I have like run into an issues without because of that. The same issue. How do you decide whether you want to reuse the connection or
Mhm,
is it the same connection throughout the project lifecycle or throughout the service lifecycle, or you want to create a new connection every time? Say, for example, to explain you, what I have tried in my second demo is I'm using one single connection, that my init
mhm,
function. So what I have done here is I have created an init function which gets which initialize when my project boots up. It maintains the connection with the database, and that connection is shared between all the handlers. If you don't want that, uh,
mhm,
there can be cases, say for example, if you are dealing with a cache instance and
mhm,
your cache instance is heavily loaded. Say for example, if you are trying to create connection for every request, say for example, I have one handler, right? In Go,
right.
each handler invocation runs in a different Go routine. It
Mhm,
can be it can have its own lifespan. Right now it's a very small and short Go routine, but
mhm,
it can have its other dependencies also. So if you are
right.
creating per connection, per invocation, and if your
Mhm,
application is under load stress,
yeah.
uh, your underlying cache instance has a limitation, right? Because it can allow certain connections. So
Mhm,
if the connections are not being cleaned up once the activity or once the session is completed, then you will run into a problem. So that decision of whether you want to create a session per
mhm,
invocation or you want to
mhm.
leverage a session, one single session throughout the database, that is up to you.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
think we can use the pool connection pool also. We can
Yes,
make it
yes,
that. And
yes, yes,
yeah,
exactly.
we have yes, we have a one more doubt from the Shailesh. How do you decide when to use interface and when not to use interface?
A very good question. When to use interface and when not to use interface. Yes. I don't know if you have uh, used Cube client in before. It's a very good use case of all the APIs that client offers. So if you see any Cube client or any client interface, be it AWS client or be it Azure or Cube client, what they do is client is an object. Okay, they have the
All right.
community or the backend team have already written the APIs. Whether you want to provide an EC2 instance, RDS instance, or a cache instance, the methods are already defined. And if what they want to do is they want to reuse those interfaces, so they don't want the consumer to write again a different method. Okay, so
Correct.
let's take an example. You are a producer, you are a writer of this. Okay, you are in a writer persona. Then when to decide whether you need to write an interface or not. Say for example, you are writing some methods which can be reused later point of time, but you don't want to directly give an access to them. And at the same point of time, you don't want them to detect what your method should be. Okay,
Ah,
so you
correct.
create an object. Maybe it can be a client. If you want them to access your service via client, you write a client and you write all those methods on the client. Okay, and
Okay.
you enclose those methods inside an interface. So now what you are doing is you are giving the power, or you are offering the functionality that you have already written in that methods to the end user without actually
Right.
exposing your methods. So if you go back to my original example, if someone wants to actually use the calculate salary, I mean, if someone wants to actually calculate the expense details, they don't have to actually call my calculate salary, because I have already created a client or an object which has already written its own implementation, how to calculate a calorie. So they just have to
Right.
call the expense details and they'll get the output. The same logic you have to follow. So if you are writing
Yeah.
something, you think if you are going to expose this to someone, and then you wrap it. Then you first you create an object, because that's where you have to pass in. You have to like that process is like that. You have to think, okay, if these functions are being exposed, you create them a method. You convert them into method. So that decision making starts from function to method first. So that's the first question that you need to ask, whether you want to create a function or a method. Functions you can create for your own local like local reusable purpose. Say for example, you want to calculate something, you want to count certain things. These are local things. So functions are like helpers, but methods are coming to picture when you're actually in future going to expose those utilities. So when I say methods, they are like utilities
Right.
to the outside. So you enclose them in an interface and define that object. In case of Kubernetes or in case of AWS, it's a client that you connect,
Right.
and you tell them how to connect a client. If you have seen the Cube client, what that does is they offers you all the APIs, say create pod, get pods. In that
Right.
client, you just have to initialize that client using your own credentials, and then all the methods that are already defined for that interface, which the client satisfies, you will be able to access.
Cool, cool, great. I think Shailesh has got his answer. Shailesh, if you have any doubts, just ping on a chat, and the Rajendra will get answer on that. So Rajendra, you can continue with your demo, and we will take your questions in sessions as we move forward. Okay.
Yep, sure.
Cool.
Thanks, Ashish. So yeah, so I think we just found out the possible issues that this code had, uh, and we'll try to see a better approach of writing this the same piece of code in a more decoupled way. Okay. Uh, yes. Let me share the other piece of code. Let me just turn this off. Okay. So yeah, the similar part, the similar problem statement, similar piece of uh, logic, but I have tried to write it in a little bit modular way. Definitely that this can be improved a lot. I haven't used the design patterns like a repository pattern that you can actually go and ahead and implement, but this is something that I think a bare minimum requirement when you're actually trying to write a good code. Like Postgres is just an example. This design logic is actually, I don't know, can be applicable for any cases. Just the whatever I'm uh, trying to showcase by this piece of code. It's just like a narrative or an idea, how to decouple things. And there's a principle like you create small modular pieces of your code and make them independent, so that the lesser the coupling, the better your code will be, and it will be very easy to refactor, extend, and debug also. So I'll share this piece of code. I have actually two branches on this. Right now I'm on the main branch of this code. I just want to see if okay, there is something I've modified, but let's see. Should be able to run this piece of code. I'll run this main.go. Yeah, I'm running on 8585 and the same handler. So just try to run this here. Again, the database, everything remains same. I'm just trying to refactor this piece of code which I had written earlier. So we'll just take this as a refactoring exercise, and yeah, it works. Uh, so let's see in detail what I have done here. So if you see, I have added one directory called as models, okay, along with main.go. So that's one good thing I have done. I have like tried to segregate certain piece of code which was earlier everything was in main.go. I have tried to put things under uh, a meaningful package which I've created models and try to put it there. So let's see what I have in my main now. So if you see, my main has initdb function which is actually implemented in the models package. We'll go there and see what it does. uh, but what it does just now, like right now, it is giving us a database connection from a pool of database. uh, Database connection it gives, and if there is an error, it returns an error. Then what I've actually tried to do here is I've created an encapsulation on top of this database. Instead of directly using a DB, I have created another object of type, say, an environment setup. Uh, this is something what I did is right now it doesn't make sense because we just have only one single attribute uh, uh, on our business logic function. Say, for example, if you have a custom logger, or say, for example, you have another dependency like a database, maybe you can have a queue or something else. So what I have tried to do here is I am trying to create an object in which I'll try to encapsulate all the dependencies that my uh, business logic function needs, and I'll initialize them before actually invoking my handler. So that was my attempt here. uh, so I have initialized my environment by the database connection that I got from my initialization, and then I'm passing that object to the web handler. Web handler does nothing. It has, again, we have, like earlier, it had one big chunk of code which I have like now try to uh, eliminate that by actually creating a function which was earlier in main.go into models package. And it just does its own business logic by querying the database and get those things, and serve to the user. So we just saw that it works. I'll go inside the models package and show you what that models package how that model package looks like. And still there are some gaps in this piece of code also, which I realized, and that's why I have like created another branch uh, to overcome them. So let's see what the model like what how the models package look like. I'll try to go inside the definition of it. Bear with me if I have like put a lot of print statements that can be actually removed by your IDE debugger. So yeah, if you see the initdb function, what it does is it just actually forms the database connection and give it to you. This can actually be modularized by actually passing command line arguments at the runtime, maybe database connection, port, password. Right now these are just like hard coded, but yeah, this can be improved later. Just for the sake of today's talk, I have like put everything hard coded, and this function just gives you a database connection. And yeah, once it's done, it does connection like close and defer. And yeah, I have one more function which I have done here is get all employee, which is a business logic actually. And it does same thing. One drawback I'll tell you later what it does. What it has right now is, again, this is simple function which has no change in the business logic in terms of the database connections. Uh, the one downside of this function is, by mistakenly, again, it creates another connection to the database, which should be avoided, right? The same principle I'm trying to follow here is this one connection which I have passed to my main at the time of initialization is being reused in all the handlers. Can be trade-offs, can be arguments whether you want to reuse the same connection or you want to create a new connection and close it. Right now I've just like tried to create one single connection at at the bootstrap level and just trying to use that. Uh, so yeah, this looks little bit better than what earlier I had written, but with still some gaps. It's not really extensible, because again it has a tight coupling. My endpoint is again directly coupled on my tied to my business logic, and again it still become one big monolith separated into two modules. So we'll see another better version of it. And uh, any questions on this? Any questions on designing and refactoring? If not, we'll go ahead and we'll see the much better version of it and see if that makes sense to us and solves whatever problem that we earlier had, whether it has readability, whether it has good extensibility, and are we able to write good unit test cases. So yeah, it doesn't have unit test case also. So we'll try to overcome them in a different in the coming thing. Uh, I have another branch interface design. So I'll just check out. Okay, I had other things in my previous this current branch. Let's see what I have added now. Okay, one space has been added here in this models.go, and let's see. Yep. So these are like minor details I can do git stash. I really don't need. I don't want them to go in. Uh, so give me a clean sheet, and let's check out to the other branch and see how it is better than the current one. Okay. So yeah, the this is my uh, little bit modified piece of the code. Again, we'll go back to main.go. Let the ID settle it down. Okay.
Rajendra, there is a one question from Rahul. Why did you use env struct in a code?
Yes. Yeah. I think I explained that. I can again go back and check out. I can check out back. I don't think I have. Okay. Check out main. Yep. So your question was this ENV, right? Okay. So right now ENV, let's take an example. My actual handler, which is calling my get employee function in this models package, is only depend on database. Okay. Say you want to initialize something else. Say you want to initialize your custom logger, maybe of some type, and say you want to maintain a connection to something else. Say for example your business logic needs you to connect to an external cache before taking some decision. So what the idea of env is, I'm trying to set up my environment before I call my business logic. Is that is that clear?
Yeah, hopefully Rahul will reply on the chat, but yeah, you can continue.
Okay, yeah. You will find this like in most of the codes. If you see any standard clients, they have attributes. Right now, I'm just like using env, which has only one dependency, like database. But you can actually have your custom logger, any third party thing if you want, which your business logic or the handler depends on. You can actually initialize them at the time of bootstrap or by calling some actual functions and initialize them, and then you implement them. So that way you will get a better control, because everything, all the dependencies that you have on this inside this business logic function are in one place, that is in one object. uh, let's get back to the other piece of code which actually want to try it out and see if it works. Demo times are actually scary. Okay, yeah, let's see if this works. I'll try to run this code again and see. Is not happy. Fine. so this is running again on the same port. So let me change the port and see if it is distinct. 6. Let's make it different port and see if I'm actually running it over here. So 686. Yep. So this code is working. Now we can actually go ahead and see what changes that we have done. So if you have seen, I have added something here. Okay. The earlier env was modified here. I'll tell you how I have modified it. Uh, it's little slightly tricky to understand these things. Even for it, I referred again my Alex Edwards blog, and I got it uh, why I have made this change, and I'll explain that. So again, this has get employee logic. Get employees actually call your backend function, and it gets you uh, with the the actual details. Yeah, I have commented that piece out. I forgot to delete it. So here I'm not creating the connections again and again. So my connection is already being passed to this function, which is my actual business logic from the top. Okay, so I'm not like actually trying to create a new connection. uh, and my connection is being built in my initdb function. Again, not much improvement on this. Maybe I can take it up later, the connection stream part. Yes, and the better thing I have done here is I've added two more things. I have created an employee model object, which has database in it now, and I have introduced an interface, EMP interface. Okay, now if you see this, let me just minimize this. If you see this now, get employee function is actually encapsulate put inside a method or interface, which is EMP interface, and the employee model object is, since it has a method already, this employee model object which I defined here is satisfying this interface. Okay, so with that, what I'll be doing is, if I want to extend this piece of code, say for example I want to write some other logic, I have already the database connection with me, uh, and I can simply write another function, maybe get employees based on a band, or get employee based on their location and what's or not. I'll still be able to reuse the same piece in the same way I am calling it, by just having the same interface, because this object uh, will have all this method implemented. Okay, that's one thing I have done. And when actually I have to mock the code, what I can do is, since I have an interface here, which is implemented on this object, I can pass my fake implementation of my business logic. So that way I don't have to, when I'm testing this code locally, not actually setting up on the server, I can actually mock this function. Like, many people get confused with when people say you have to mock things. Mocking is simple thing. Mocking is like when you have to test certain things uh, without using or without being dependent on the external factors. Say for example, in our case, the depend like the dependency was database. So if I don't have a database, I can't test it locally, right? This is being avoided. This is being completely abstracted away, because since what I can do is I can pass an object, a fake object, which can have again a fake method. Since uh, we can have this method, since that fake object satisfies this since that fake object satisfies the interface, I can actually write my own implementation inside that method and get rid of the actual database call. What I mean by that, I'll explain in my main underscore test.go file. But let's come back here. uh, so this is interface, and if you see now, instead of having just a database object, which was in the earlier case, I have enclosed the database connection inside my employee model. And that's what you will see. My env is different. My environment env structure is now not a db. It is an object of type interface. What that means is I can directly access methods on that object, which is a database object, and directly use them. So I don't have to actually uh, you know uh, call them individually. That's something I have done here. Any confusion over here? I know it's slightly difficult to understand, but I have actually done is I have changed this object to an interface. That's all. If you see, this is an object which satisfies as an interface. Okay, and I'll walk you through the main underscore test.go and show you how it is better now. And let me just open it in a different tab. Open right split. Yeah, so if you see now, what I have done with that is uh, this gives me a clear way that I don't have to depend on my database when I'm actually writing a UT. So I'll just like tell you what I have done here. So I've created a employee model object, which is a fake structure. Okay, and it actually implements it get employee function, which is actually business logic. And this guy is actually one who is actually depends on the database call, which is nothing but if I'm in models, yes, this object, this function, which is actually depends on the database. So I've completely abstracted away. I have written my own single object, own my fake object. Uh, and now I'm calling it uh, I'm calling this function, this method by my fake object, and I'm actually passing my fake object here. Like I want my object is of having this values which I have already initialized here. So this is something you can consider is my test input. Okay. Uh, and I want to test how my function behaves for this test input. In your real life scenario, what would have happened is what your input request you get from the database, that you are marshalling inside an employee and get that things done. Uh, I'm using a fake model object and getting it, getting what I want actually from this method, because this method will return you models or employee, which is emp uh, array. And I'm writing a simple test function. You have a recorder and request. Why this is required? Again, many people get confused with this. Now you have to actually, what you have to do is you have to actually call this function, line number 29, which is actually a web handler. Okay, because that function only will invoke my business logic. So first I have to call this. There is something we can easily mock using HTTP test. If you have to call this get employee, you need two objects. You need a response writer and you need a request. So response writer is interface which has these three methods. If you see recorder satisfies that interface. That's why you can directly use a recorder in place of response writer actually. And then I'm forming a new request. Then once I have these two objects, I can actually call my handler, which is exactly what I'm doing at line number 25. I'm calling this handler get employees by recorder and the request. And I want to see what how it behaves. So I can actually write what I'm expecting, and I can pass different test cases and see if it works. So whatever I've passed here will actually being passed to this get employees function. Sorry, a method here. And if everything goes well, whatever I'm expecting here, if this is what like whatever I'm passed and whatever I'm expecting they're true, I'll get a result as pass. So I'll just try to run this and see if it works. Test V. Okay, what's the problem? Okay, I put it like this. So don't worry, have like already taken care of it. So yeah, this is pass. If you have any questions on writing unit test, please put them in the chat. I'll be happy to cover this. Most of the fellow developers who are just beginning their programming journey, they tend to avoid the unit test cases, and as a good engineer, we should not do that. So if you have any questions, ping me in the chat.
I think no questions yet. Just one doubt, Rajendra.
Mhm.
It's not regarding the testing, just a project structure.
Mhm.
I have seen a different projects have a different folder structure. So
Okay,
there is a no standard way to to structure your
that's
project.
true.
What folder you should make or something. So what do you think? What it should be? How your structure should should look like?
Yes. If you're asking me complete generic one, your main function should be, if you have seen, there is a any you take any open source project repository, Kubernetes for that matter is a very good repository, as being contributed and watched by and reviewed by thousands of developers. If you take an example, each module in the Kubernetes has its own CMD, which is like a command line. Okay,
Right.
CMD. And inside that, you actually write that component logic. So if you take any Kubernetes repository right now, haven't cloned it, but to give you an answer, you always have your main should always be included inside
Yeah.
CMD, because how you build your project, you will build a project from there. Then
Yeah.
from your main, it should just call the next entry point. Say
Mhm.
your main is just calling, maybe your main is actually having a init function, so you're
Mhm.
bootstrapping your code. Then your main should just call the next entry point. That's all.
Cool. Cool. I think Shailesh has a question. Can you list some best practices for writing unit test for REST APIs?
Yes. Again, this is like a nested question. You can write, if your REST API is depends on other things. You can
Mhm.
easily write REST APIs. You test case for REST API by having your own recorder and a request. You can form the request. You can maybe actually write your response body also. Uh, the best practice comes into picture when your business logic or that web handler is actually doing something else. Maybe in our case currently it was dealing with the database, so we have to mock this. So if you're asking me the best practices, yes, think about uh, when you're writing your actual business logic, how you can decouple it from your dependencies so that you can mock it.
Cool, cool. I think, yeah, Shailesh, it's pretty much clear. If you have any doubts, just put on chat. So, guys, any doubts, any question? The chat is on. Please put, put them there. And Rajendra, do you have anything to continue or yeah?
No, I think yeah, that's all I
Cool.
have for
So
today.
Uh, cool. I think Rajan, it was a wonderful session. So, guys, still, if you have any questions or any doubts, just put them in the chat, or you can comment it out. Our speaker will, will get back to you anytime, and they will answer on the comments or the chat. Yeah. So,
Yep.
Rajendra, thanks for your time, and it was a wonderful session. I think
Thanks, Ash.
you have cover very basic things, which is actually need when you start with the Golang. So it
Yes.
was a very helpful for the Golang beginners, and I have also learned a lot of things today. So yeah, thanks from all, and so we will shortly start with our second session with the Aamir. So stay tuned, guys. We'll get back. Thanks, Rajendra.
Yep. Thank you, Ashish. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, welcome, guys. Uh, Hi, Aamir.
Hi, hello. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? It's great to see
Great,
you.
great. It's a wonderful day over here in Mumbai.
Yeah. So, cool, guys. Welcome all again, and it's a pleasure to have Aamir from ManiarTech. He's the CEO of ManiarTech. So he's going to
Hmm.
cover a Go generics, I think, which is a very exciting topic. So, Maniar, I won't take too much time. Let's start with the session, and all yours. Okay. Let me add your screen as well in the stream. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Just a second. I'll have to move this out here. Okay. Can you see me? Hello?
Yes. Everything is. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, good. So, actually, when I saw this invitation, I thought that it's a good time to share, something about the Go generics that the Go is coming up with a new feature called generic in upcoming release 1.18. If you guys are following then and excited about what is generics, then this particular session in this particular session I'm going to explain you like what is generics, why do we need it basically in the Go language, and what we have been doing. Is this features essential? How much essential? Or if it is so essential, then how could without the generics, how the Go community, how we could survive so far you know so let me start. My name is Mohamed Aamir Maniar. I'm CEO of Maniar Technologies Private Limited, and I have more than 2 decades of experience in software development. I work with many blue chip companies, and since last 12 years, I have started my own company, and we have been developing some great softwares for the business automations and open source and stuff like that. Uh, so today's topic, I'm going to cover these things like why do we need generics? Okay, what is generics? Why do we need it? Okay, then how, with respect to Go, how can we apply the principle of the generic? And then there are various different kind of activities that will take look into that structure. What should we do? Like how to activate the generic in the current platform, and see the syntax of the generics, and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead. So does anyone have any idea about what is generic? Have you heard about this word before? Ashish, you can probably, I'm not able to see the comments.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would like to basically this session interactive. I'm not able to see the comment. If you can
Yeah,
respond
sure.
on behalf of the community, it would be good actually.
Sure, sure, sure. So, as of now, no response in a comment. But yeah, if I'm telling my view, yeah, I have a few idea about the genres, but not in a detail. So it's something like it's an independent type you can assign, or in short.
Okay. No worries. I'll let you know. So before we
Sure.
understand, before we understand and go ahead and see the generic, okay, we should understand. Let me classify the programming languages from the two categories. Classify into two categories: dynamic languages and the statically typed language. Okay,
Mhm.
so you can classify the language, in terms of like interpreted language or compiled language or something like that, or but let me classify the languages into these two categories: dynamic languages and the statically typed language. So what are the dynamic languages? The In the dynamic language, like when you initialize a variable, say for example x equal to 10, when you say that, okay, you don't have to basically annotate a type. You don't need to specify the data type, whether that particular x particular variable x is an integer or a string, or you don't need to annotate a type with the variable name. Okay, so those kind of languages are like Python, Ruby, PHP, JavaScript, so on and so forth. And there are another category of languages. They are statically typed languages. So in these languages, you need to basically compiler enforces you to provide a type. Say such languages are like C, C++, Java, C Sharp, Go, then Rust, and many more. Right. So when you create a variable in Go or in C, you have to say int I equal to 10, for example, right? So you are basically telling the system, you are telling the compiler that you want to create a variable of type integer, and you'd like to assign a value 10 to that variable. So the problem with, you know, with the statically typed language, like if you have to create a reusable algorithm, say for example a sort function, then you'll have to uh, if you if you have created sort function for an integer, okay, you cannot use that same function for a string, or you cannot use same function for long or any other data type. To create a sort function for you'll have to recreate them basically. So it's very difficult. In the dynamic language, it's very easy and very straightforward. You do, because there is no type, you just pass the way the pass the value, or the pass the iterable, and just call that function, and it's done, as simple as that. Let me show you an example in the Python language, a very basic example. Let me create a test hello.py file. This is a Python. Okay, and what I'm doing here, I'm creating an add function. Add, basically it adds two variables a and b, right? See here what I have done here. Like I'm sorry. So here what I'm doing, I'm printing the result of add function. I'm passing 1 and 2. Okay, so it's basically perform the addition, okay, and prints the result, and the result is 3 over here. Now if I want to perform the same operation on the string, print add hello and world. See, it prints hello world over here. It's very straightforward. This is the benefit and advantage of dynamic language. Okay, you'll find the same behavior in all kind of dynamic language, whether it is JavaScript or the PHP or Python, Ruby, or whatever, Julia, or whatever. Right? Let me let me create one more function called print list. Here I'm passing a list, and it basically go through iterate through the elements in the list and prints it. Okay, so this print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, it prints 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now instead of passing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I am passing A, B, and C. It prints A, B, C. So the same function, it's basically very much reusable, right? I don't have to basically change. So this is, this is, you might say, well, like, this is very simple. Why do you need? But sometimes what happens is when you write a complex, very complex, highly complex algorithm or data structure, then to create, to repeat them, to recreate the code just for the sake, because just because the data type is different, it is not good. It is very bad practice. And unfortunately, uh, some of the languages like Go, you know have pro- does not provide a direct way to deal with this kind of problems. Go does have some mechanism that we are going to look in few minutes from now. That how can you perform, how can you create a reusable code without the help of generic, right? So if you can see here, it's very straightforward. Like print list function, just basically, sorry. Print list function basically simply prints the list. Okay, if I pass over here like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, we print. Very much straightforward. But let me create the similar thing in Go. Okay, hello generics. So I have this function print list integer. Okay, so it was able to print uh, the slice of integer in, right. Now let me replace this with the string. Okay, it won't work. Do you see? It throws an error. It gives us a compile time error, like something is not good. Let me run it. As you can see, it's not working. So what I'll have to do, I'll have to recreate this print list str. Now I am here in the argument, instead of passing a slice of an integer, I'm passing size of string. Okay, and let me print list, call this function print list str. Now it is working fine. So for the same problem, you have to write it two times. Sometimes what happens is, uh, Generally, what Go community do for now, basically, instead of accepting type specific slice in this particular case, it you can accept basically uh, something called interface, empty interface. So empty interface is basically, so empty interface can accept any sort of data type over here. See, now it can accept uh, A or one or C or whatever, right? So we were able to create reusable print list function. But the issue is with this approach, we had to use the interface over here, the slice of interface. But we lost. There are two issues with this. We lost the type checking, the static type checking. So here I can pass now a instead of strictly passing a string or strictly passing an integer, I can mix and match basically any sort of variable. So I'm losing the compile time error checking in this particular approach. So this is a solution so far that Google Go community is basically using instead of generic for uh, creating reusable code. But this particular approach has two problems. One is that it does not enforce the compile time error checking. Second, interface itself is, it's basically something, it is not recommended in most of the cases, uh, because the inter when you what happens is, you need to understand like what is interface. This specifically an empty interface. So when I say, for example, when I say a variable x equal to empty interface, okay, and if I assign an integer to an x, what happens is here basically interface, it's a kind of container. Okay, it's an another the 30 is a value, the value is stored in the container, and that particular the container is pointing to somewhere in the memory. You are not basically assigning value 30 directly to the x, but you are basically you are boxing the value, you are putting the value 30 into the box of that particular interface, and that interface will store the value somewhere in the memory, and then x will point to that particular memory location. So it is like, using a reference, pointer reference, uh, which can hold any sort of value. So basically when you use interface, it if you want to use it, if you want to consume it, it takes basically two transactions rather one transaction. Like first of all, it opens that particular, it this the runtime, the Go runtime has to locate the pointer and then read the value from that particular pointer. Okay, so it's basically kind of little bit slow. It's when I say slow, like, it's not that slow that you'll notice. But mission critical application, this kind of thing, it's very difficult. Okay, that is the reason that this is one of the reason, with along with others such as garbage collect, that Go is, even though Go is very fast, though Go cannot be used you know, for very sophisticated, uh, sophisticated applications, right? So what is the solution? Solution is coming up in the form of generic. Okay, generic is basically a mechanism in the modern languages that allows the statically typed languages such as Go, C++, Java, or C Sharp, or TypeScript, to create reusable algorithms or reusable data structure, uh, so that you don't have to, basically the programmers don't have to, you know uh, the UL programmers will still get the very good uh, execution capability, very good the performance, very, all maintaining the code readability. Let me replace this with a generic function. So what you'll have to do here, we create a function print list that is generic. So I need to specify the type over here, the type P, and then need to specify the any. So now any, basically, if you see any over here, any is it's nothing new. It's basically, even though it is a new keyword coming up in Go 1.18, this is basically an alias of interface, empty interface. This one, either you use this or you use any, right? And then list T, and then now I can pass. See, it says I am passing the integer, a slice of an integer. Okay, so in the slice of an integer, I cannot pass A and C. So it is complaining. So let me replace that with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it worked. Now the same function, if I consume with the size of string, okay, it works. It prints the list of string, right? So, any doubts so far? Before moving ahead, does anyone have any?
Amir, as of now, there is no doubts. I have some doubts for my side. Can you just tell us, like, is there any specific use case where I can use Go generics? Uh, like, what do you think? Is there any real life use, like real use cases where I can use Go generics?
Yes, very much. Say, let me open one of my project. Okay,
Sure.
actual project. So see, this is the project currently I'm working on. This is very, very, very big project called Processes, and here
Uh,
we are basically developing the business process automation
mhm.
solution, and it has got thousands, and I guess
Mhm.
hundreds of thousands of line. Okay, let
Mhm.
me open this particular
Mhm. Okay.
file called collection.go. So as I mentioned that the generic is good for creating reusable algorithm and a data structure,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So what happens is, like, in many times what happens, like, say I have created this for this project, for this project we have not used generic. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now
Okay.
I have very simple requirement, like
Mm-hmm.
I have an interface,
Mm-hmm.
this, and I want to, that interf I have, I can, I need to iterate. Okay, I need to iterate, look
Okay.
through any kind of variable. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
any variable, it
Okay.
should check if the variable is a if the variable is if the variable is a slice, or an array. If it is not slice on array, then it should throw it result, it should return an error, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what happens is here, uh, I'm passing basically an array as an interface. See, I
Mm-hmm.
can pass, since it is an interface, I can pass any value. I can pass slice of
Right.
slice of string, slice of struct, or integer, or array of struct, or I can literally pass anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to do to perform this, basically, let me show you this. Actually, that would be better. Let me copy this code over here.
Yep.
So now I want to basically loop through each and every item, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what I am doing basically, let me create a variable over here, x, ints, stars.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This for is like it accepts basically a function. You must have seen, the for each loop in the JavaScript.
Yeah.
So it accepts a function, and it basically gives you an item, okay, for each an
Mm-hmm.
item, for each and every item in the list or the slice. It will call this particular function so that you can process it.
Right. Yeah, it
Okay.
seems like some JavaScript. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
okay. So sometimes when you are not aware like what the
mm-hmm.
variable is, but you'd like to convert, for example, you have a variable called x, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what is x. X is an slice of interface, x is a slice of string, s is a
Mm-hmm.
slice of integer, or what you don't know basically. But
Exactly.
you'd like to process the slice,
Mm-hmm.
but you are sure that that is a slice, some sort of iteratable, right? You
Mm-hmm.
are sure. So what you'll have to do, for that particular reason, I created this. So what it does, it basically checks whether it uses the reflection. If you don't know reflection, it's basically a mechanism in the Go language and many of the modern languages that allows you to query the the runtime, okay, and fetch the information about the types and the variables, and dynamically it allows you to dynamically execute the code, you
Yeah.
know. So it uses the reflection to understand the type, like what I'm passing over here as a second parameter. And if
Mm-hmm.
it is some sort of slice, or something which can be iterated over, then it performs it basically uses a reflection to execute the iteration. And then it's complex code, right? It's not that
Right. Yep.
if you can see,
Got it.
the beginner programmer, it's difficult for beginner programmers to basically write this kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, right?
No, I have. I can feel this pain. I have faced this issue lots of time.
Yes. So for this kind of thing, this is very common actually. That's the reason you are saying
Mm-hmm.
that you come across this issue. It's
Yeah.
very common.
Because
So for,
sometimes you use a third party package or something and you don't know whether what kind of the type of output is going to come. It can be integer, string, and anything. So at that time you have to go to the all docs. You have to dig into what they have defined the variable type, and then you have to
right.
do the code accordingly. So yes.
Yes. Yes. So with the help of generic, basically, you don't
Mhm.
need to, write this kind of complex code. It will simple. You don't need an interface, empty interface, which I said
Okay.
that, it. enforces unnecessary burden by creating boxy and unboxing. uh,
Mm-hmm.
then it also let you lose the runtime compile time type checking, you know.
Mm-hmm.
In some of the cases, interfaces are good, like if you would like to introduce a late binding or the dynamic dispatch in your
Mm-hmm.
programming, then it is good in those
Okay.
cases.
Mm-hmm.
But in this kind of cases, the empty interfaces, or these are not actually. But Go community or the Go programmer does not have, Go developer does not have, this kind of facility. So with
Got it.
with the help of generic, you create a very easy simple solution. Like you just create a for loop or iterator, basic iterator, that can accept any sort of uh, type. And it is performant. It is, you have all the compile time checking and everything in place, and you don't lose anything, basically. Like, best of all.
Got it.
So yes. So now, if you would like to use, currently the Go 1.18 is not launched. If you have to use, if you want to try, what you should do. So there are basically two options. One is very quick one. You can directly go to the this particular website,
Yeah.
gotipplay.golang.org, and start testing your generic code in generic. Okay, you can
Mm-hmm.
start creating your algorithms and data structure immediately, and
Yeah.
get the feel of it, basically.
Got it.
And if you want to, second approach, if you want to create a library, okay, or you'd like to try something in the development, even though it
Mm-hmm.
is not released, what you can do is, like, you'll have to basically download this something called Go Tip. Basically,
Yeah.
Go Tip,
Correct. My
yeah, Go
next
Tip,
question was that what was the go tip you have when you type, because we when we have to run, we use go run. So
right?
I
Yes, yes. So Go Tip is basically a similarly, it's a Go compiler. It's a Go,
okay.
Go runtime. Basically, it's a Go compiler.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but Go Tip will give you all the latest feature, whatever is in development right now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Once you download the Go Tip, use these two commands, like go install Golang DL Gotip latest, and then
Okay.
Gotip download. Once you are done, then you can use Gotip, all the same command, like Gotip run and then file name, to execute your code with a generic. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
And good thing, what, I have installed, if you are aware of this GitHub Copilot, if you can see that, the Gotip also, it also works with the Visual Studio
Mm-hmm.
Code, and like it, see it, all my code is automatically written by
Yeah,
the
yeah.
artificial intelligence. Whatever I'm thinking, it automatically, it guesses, and
Wow,
it try to generate, basically. See,
great. And this is GitHub Copilot, right?
yes, it is a GitHub
Yeah.
Copilot.
Mm,
It's a very fantastic tool, basically. Okay,
great.
so there are some issues, however, with the, not I would say issues, but if you want to use, if you want to use a generic, Go generic, you have to use, basically, you need to know how to solve particular problem. You need to understand the syntax of the Go generic. Okay, for that purpose, I have my second example. Like, there is something called constraint. Let me create a function called equal. This is generic function. Okay. See, did you notice that I am supposed to write this particular line, return A equals to B. But since
Yeah.
it is not going to work, the Go Copilot knows that. So it knows that I need to use the reflect for this to work. So it
Mhm.
automatically give me these options. But I don't need this right now. I know it is not going to work, but still I'm basically equal one and one. See the error, it's not working, right? The error is like now we have created our generic function called equal, right? It should basically compare two values like a and b, and if both of this variable are comparable equal, then it should return true, otherwise false. So I am able to pass one and one and a, or both should return true, but it gives an error. That error is like a equal, the type parameter tree is not comparable with equality operator. What does that mean? So we basically I have marked the t as any. That means t is an empty interface. Any is an alias of empty interface. Okay. So now, then empty interface does not allow it. It does not have this. It does not support equality operator, right? So what is the solution? Even if you write something like this, it won't work. X any equal to 1. Oops. Here it is working. I was not aware of that. Let me replace that with. Here it is working, but somehow. So basically, I also need to learn something. Since this is very new, need to explore. But in this particular case, it says that any operator, for any, the equality operator is not available. It's not comparable. So what is the solution? The solution is to mark the t as comparable. Now it prints true and true. Now you might be wondering, what is this comparable, right? So comparable is a kind of one of the built-in constraint that you can put on on the generic type, right? So when you perform something like this, okay, it will check that the the the, the variable or the values that you are passing to the equal function has, or does it support this kind of comparable operators like equality operator. If if some of the values may not, some of the basically variable don't support this. Say for example, like this one, x is, and instead of 1 and 1, if I say x and y over here, let's see what happens. See, even the values are same over here. The foo is holding 1 and bar is holding 2. They are not comparable. So what it says, it throws an error like string int map string, it does not implement comparable, right? So for this functions to work successfully, we need to pass any variable that can be comparable. I'm sorry. Okay, so you can put, depending upon your algorithm, you can put such kind of constraints. So there are built-in constraints such as comparable, orderable, something, okay, in the library already in the Go. See, I did not have to import any sort of special package to use the comparable. It is built in, right? The way print function is built in, you don't need to import anything. Print is already built in, right? Similarly, comparable is built in into the Go uh, language itself. Okay, so now the question is, what if you want to create your own such kind of constraints? Okay, so Go 1.18 introduce one more category, one more mechanism, so that allows you to create, this kind of constraints. Let me introduce you something called multi-type interface. uh, Let me create this one, edible interface. Fine. Type edible. Okay, here I've created the generic add function, okay, which accepts a type. The type must be of addable type, right? So so addable is basically composite interface. Basically, it can hold any value, like it can hold int or float or string. I have put these three data types in here. I this is this is kind of, this is, you can think this as a such kind of arrangement as a union of data type, right? So when you say edible, x equal to edible, okay, where x is edible, then in the edible you can assign int, you can assign any value which is float, or you can also assign the string value. So I've created an add function that basically accepts addable sort of generic parameter, and then it accepts two parameters of type t, and then it performs the addition operator. See, int also supports this plus operator, float also supports, and string also supports. So if I say like add xy and add ab, basically it should work. Let's see. Undefined. Okay. So for this particular line, it printed the result 3, and for this line, it printed the AB. Any question here?
Uh, Not Jade as of now. Uh,
Okay,
so it's going good. Yeah. So
okay,
this is
great.
coming in a Go 18, right? 1.18.
Yeah, go 1.18. Yes. Recently, 3 4 days before, they have released the release candidate one.
Mm-hmm.
Of well, they have cleared all the beta one and beta two testing.
Mm-hmm.
Now the release candidate one, go 1.18 release candidate one was introduced last week, I guess.
Okay.
This week itself, I think. And generally, in my experience, it takes around 20 25 days to release. So you can expect 1.18 anytime soon. So it
Oh.
will be very big change. It
Mm-hmm.
will be very big change for the community, because I'm seeing that at least in my project also, I can see there are lots of code that we can rewrite with the help of
Rewrite, yeah.
generic.
I understand. Uh, but they're going to support the old one, right?
Yes, 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 yes. I read somewhere, in blog, in Medium blog,
Mm-hmm.
that they are not going to change the existing code in the standard library,
Okay.
just to maintain the backward compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
So it will work. It will keep on working. So
Cool.
this is good. Okay. So far we have seen all the examples which were related to functions. Let
Mm-hmm.
me introduce you with the let us create basically data structure called, let us create a stack, for example. Stack data structure. Stack is basically LIFO data structure, as you know, like last in first out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so whatever you push last will be popped out first, right? So it's a very let me create a very basic, the simple version of this. If you want to create the Python code or the Java, it will very easy, it very straightforward. But now with the help of generic, it is also very straightforward in Go. So let me create one. It's a very simple one. I'll not make it complicated. So stack is basically a collection that holds a list of t. T could be any, right? And let me add methods called push and pop. See, I don't have to write anything. GitHub Copilot writes it for me.
It's a magic
Now
sort of.
it will automatically guess the next function. See, I just don't have to do anything. Okay, let me type F. and then see
Yeah.
it has just see. I'm just pressing tab key, nothing else.
Mhm.
Okay, now our basic stack is ready. See, cannot use without instantiation. What is the issue here? Okay, need to specify like what is it. Okay, I see. Sometimes you cannot rely entirely on Copilot,
I know. Yeah, I understand.
right? So I pushed the one first, then two, and third last. Okay. Then when I pop it, it basically it popped the three first because it was
Mm-hmm.
the last that we pushed. Then it popped says number two, and then popped. So far so good. It's working fine.
Cool.
Let us create one more function called sort. Okay. Now it won't work. There is a reason behind that. Let me put a random value here. Yes. Find file specifier. Invalid operations. It says that the type T they are not comparable. You don't have this. So let me create one more constraint. You know that can be comparable. We'll use the same syntax type orderable. Yes. And we'll just put this to data type now. Okay, it is good. So we sorted it out. Okay. Uh, so to create a generic data structure, what you need to do is basically you need to declare a struct, okay, with the generic type definition, and wherever you whatever member you would like to apply this generic type, you can replace that with any primitive or any built-in type like this, and then for each function for you need to repeat the same signature over here, like without the constraint, like in the method. For example, the method is this one. Okay, the methods, instead of just saying stack like this, you'll have to put you need to define the generic type over here as well. Then only you can use that type in the the function name. Is it clear or what?
Yep.
Any question here?
Cool. Uh, as of now, not Amir. There's no question.
Okay, good.
But yeah, one thing is, do you have find any performance issue while using this? Like when we write any services or daemon services. So what do you think is there
Okay,
can be any
so
performance?
okay, there won't be any performance issue.
Okay.
In fact, performance you'll find a performance improved. Okay,
Wow.
why?
Okay.
Because
Mm-hmm.
see, to understand that, you need to understand how does it work basically.
Mm-hmm.
you know so let me basically, can I remove this everything? Okay, let me create another file.
Yeah, yeah. Just a reminder, we're actually running out of time, but you can make a quick one. Not an issue.
Actually, this is little bit, I thought that I will be able to finish it in 30-40 minutes,
Yeah, yeah, not an issue. Amir,
but I wanted to cover as much as possible.
of course. And we also taking the question in mean session. So of course, it's not an issue. You have.
Okay, so function add uh, p and orderable like this. Okay, so basically what happens is
Mhm.
when you write this kind of code,
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
when you write this kind of code, uh, and when you compile will perform some sort of optimization. You know that compile Go has, I'm not sure whether you are aware of it or not, but Go has, Go has, Go is a language which is delimited by semicolon, like this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Correct.
But we are not prompted, or we are not allowed as a developer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the compiler takes care of it.
Correct.
Before, while compiling, it will automatically add the semicolon on our behalf, right? So
Oh,
such kind
wow.
of optimization basically compiler does. So when you write this kind of code, what will happen? It will basically create, this, it will expand this function, add function, into
Mm-hmm.
something like, add one.
Ah, got it. Cool.
Okay, why?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're consuming the add function with two different parameters. So it
Right.
will replace this add function
Mm-hmm.
with this one, these two functions.
Got it.
Okay,
Got it.
so the performance point of view, you are directly basically using the the native data type that you would like to use it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you are not using something, in between, such as empty interface, or uh,
Got it.
so, it is performant. It enforces the compile time, uh, type checking, and it's good. It is very fast.
Cool. Yeah, I think this is a very fundamental thing you have explained, and I don't think lots of Golang developers is aware about this. So thanks for this and the semicolon secret.
Yeah.
I thought the Golang is not allowed, the semicolon, and so you
No,
told me.
Golang supports. Golang has the concept of semicolon. Uh, I would like to cover two more basic concept of this, which is related to generic, and then we can wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay, and yeah, let me explain you that concept with the help of the stack. Uh, so we have a pop function over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here I'm pushing three values and popping three values. Let me see what happens if I pop one more value. Okay, so it throws an error, index out of range, right? Because we don't the list does not have any value, and it will try to basically, what we can do here, like, if if the length of this is zero, then we have two options. We can return nil, right? But if you know that the primitive data type does not support nil, in the Golang, primitive data types such as int, or the float, or or the bool, you cannot store nil value to this. So let us see what happens here. See, it says cannot use nil as a t value in the return statement, right? But for the primitive, for this kind of data type, there is a concept in Go called zero value. Have you heard about that concept?
Not sure. No.
So what happens is, like, when you create a variable
Mm-hmm.
such as var int, Okay, so
Mhm.
I have not initialized with the value. Okay, so it will initialize this value with a zero variable. So
Okay.
every data type like float, int, string has their own associated zero values, right?
Right.
For int it is zero, for string, you know, it is empty string. Empty
Mhm.
string is a zero value for string. Okay,
Mhm.
for struct, say for example this is struct, it is empty struct, something like this,
Mhm.
right? For pointer it is nil actually, pointer or the reference or the, right?
Okay. Right.
So now I would like to return a zero value here. How can I do that? So it's very simple. Like we need to create a t and don't assign it
Mhm.
and return.
Oh.
So let's see,
Ah. All right.
right? So
Correct.
it is basically an integer stack. Now let us see if the same structure, let us replace that with string. Does it work or not? Yes, it is working. But here it is printing the empty string. It's not throwing an error.
Mhm.
Fine. So you need to
Right.
also know like what is the zero value of variable. And one more last thing that I wanted to explain is something called, it's very interesting actually.
Mhm.
I, let me paste it here itself. So I have this two function. If you are aware of the something called stringer, stringer is basically an interface.
Mhm.
Basically, when you print something like this, format.print, it will try to call the string method of this particular value. Okay, string method.
Right.
So stringer, all the basic primitive data types such as int or or say for example, if you have a struct like this, type
Mhm.
hello struct. Okay, now if you print it, what it should print? If I say if I print it, compiler sometimes this compiler gets stuck. Like
Mhm.
see, it prints empty.
Yep.
Now, if you want to control, instead of showing the, if you would like to print hello, happening? Why it is printing this actually? Sometimes I don't understand what's going on. Should I print this hello actually? I'm sorry, I'm just trying something. This is not string actually. Sorry. So probably not this, not format.print, but there are many classes actually. I don't remember it now, but there are many classes. In the I thought that format.print is one of them, but it is not
Mhm.
working. Uh, Maybe I'll have to go back to the documentation and check it again. But the stringer is a concept that is the string is a concept that is implement provided by the stringer interface. Stringer interface like format.stringer.
Mhm.
So whoever uh, object, or whatever object has this particular function method called string, while printing it automatically tries to call that particular string method. you know it
Okay.
automatically, you don't have to. So so this is one of them. But the idea is not that. What I am going to explain you next is the last concept, and which is very important. you know
Mhm.
so let's see this one. Now you have seen the interfaces, and you have seen the uh just a minute. Okay, now I have this basically method called print stringer. Okay, it accepts the stringer, any object that has implemented this particular interface, fmt.stringer. Stringer has only one method called string. See here, this one, right? So any structure that has implemented the string, that has the string method, is considered that that particular structure has implemented stringer interface, right? So I'm creating this two different functions over here. Both accept stringer. See, print stringer here, This one is not generic, and this one is generic printer solution. Print generic print stringer. It accepts t as a parameter, and the t is format.stringer, and s the parameter string, which is basically a t. Okay, and then here what I am doing, fmt.println s.string, as simple as that, right? I've created this custom struct called test stringer, and the test stringer has this method called string that makes this particular struct as a stringer, right? Now I instantiated this one. Now I am invoking this to print stringer and generic print stringer. Even though, if you see, even though I'm using a different, basically different approaches. I'm using, more code when compared to the simple solution. Like the print stringer just accepts t, but generic print stringer accepts the format stringer, and then t. So even though I'm writing what do you, what do you think, which code is optimized, which one is high performance? Both here, in this case, both works.
Mm-hmm.
Let me open this. See this code. Both produces the same result.
Right.
Do you understand the problem here,
Mm-hmm.
or do you understand the question that I'm trying to ask?
Yep. So, I think you are trying to showing the performance, right? I mean, the print
Yes,
stringer
yes,
and generic.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
correct.
Okay, let me explain you here. So
Right.
here it is accepting an interface. The print
Mm-hmm.
stringer function is accepting an interface. So when I pass print stringer, when I
Mm-hmm.
pass t, what will happen? The t will be boxed, packed into that particular interface.
Mm-hmm.
This interface,
Right.
and it will create a memory somewhere, and then it will invoke this, and this particular function will try to read from that particular memory.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
and in this particular case, the object, since this is a generic solution, as I mentioned earlier previously, that it creates its own version of the function.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it will basically pass the object itself directly without, it won't pass to, through the memory, through the references. It will not box it. It will
Got it.
basically simply pass it, like it is as you know it is as if like you are passing the object of structure to the function,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Right. So we have saved the step of boxing, like uh, converting in like using the struct, like in the previous function,
yes,
as you explained, that step has been skipped here. So
yes.
I assume that's why it's now getting faster.
Okay, so again, I'm not saying it is faster or slower,
Okay.
because again, you need to take into account, other aspect also, call to function, pass
Mm-hmm.
by parameter or pass by
Yeah, yeah,
reference, or
yeah.
if the structure is very big, then
Mm,
passing by reference is rather easy and good.
correct.
And so, but what I'm trying to explain here, like, to implement such thing, you need to understand the underlying things, like how does it work. Okay,
Right.
so that while developing, while coding, you take the better decision.
Agreed.
Like what to do, like whether you should use, whether you should use an interface or you should directly uh, use pass the structure. What should you do? At the end of the day, this is also basically kind of it's not bad, and this is
Mm-hmm.
also not bad. But you need to take into account different aspect and take the decision, sensible decision,
Correct.
right? And
Cool.
there are many other things actually. Actually, I wanted to show you one more thing, but it is a bit long.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think we should wrap this up. The something there are still generics, go generics. Uh, it is not the final version. You'll keep on seeing the upgrade. This is the just the first version that is coming up in
Right.
1.18.
Mm-hmm.
That it has got its own, like, they have not finished everything. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
you compare with the Java generics or C sharp, they are more matured.
Right.
Okay, but with this version, at least I can say that you'll be able to start writing generic algorithms, and instead of depending upon the interfaces or reflection, or the code generation or any other
Mm-hmm.
mechanism that is available in today's time.
Right.
So it's a good thing that is coming up. Yeah, that's it. Any
Cool.
question?
Cool. Cool. I cannot see any question as of now, and whatever the question I have already asked you. But yeah, it was a fantastic. You have explained the underlay thing. I think the fundamental things. It cleared lots of things to me as well. So thanks, Amir, for the wonderful session. And we would love to hear more, which we have not covered in this session. But yeah, in the upcoming session, we would like to hear you more on the generics and the other, other feature of the Golang.
Yeah.
So it was a totally pleasure, and thanks to you from the All Golang committee that you have given the time and your knowledge.
Yes, someday, I would like to discuss something called internet object. Have you heard about this?
Just a minute. It's
This
internet
one.
object. No, not no no no. I'm not aware of this.
So basically,
Of
this
this.
new age data serialization format. Okay,
Wow.
it
I'm.
it aims to replace basically JSON. Uh, and if you
Mhm.
see here, this is basically a document, two documents uh,
Mhm.
with internet object, and this is how it looks in JSON. Okay,
Ah, got it.
it's basically very concise. It
Mhm.
is a schema first format. It
Right.
it supports validation. It has built-in validation at, but basically reduces the size, up to
Mhm.
40%. Data transfer
Oh,
size up to 40%. You know,
wow.
and actually this is my format. I have been working on this since quite some time, and most probably anytime, I'm almost done. I'm just finalizing the draft.
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
can,
Of course.
if you want to know more about the specification, you can go and check out this site, docs.internetobject.org.
Wow. So I'm also just keep posting in a chat box, so people who are going to refer this video after today, they will find the all resources.
Yeah, that would be great.
Cool, Amir. I think yeah, it was. I think we would love to hear you again in the future with these some of the
Definitely.
exciting topics, internet objects and everything. So yes, thanks once again, Amir. It was a
I also,
wonderful.
I would like to conduct one more session on this, the GitHub Go pilot. Actually, it's
Yeah,
fantastic tool, and I also want to set up many Go developer. Actually, many Go developer are not aware of how to set up right development environment.
exactly,
You know,
exactly. Yes.
So
So I think this is a wonderful topic for a next meetup. So let me check with this. I think it will be a pretty exciting for the gophers.
yeah, what happens is, like, when you set up, generally people use different kind of tools, and even
Mm-hmm.
even if they, what I have set up my dev environment surrounding the Visual Studio Code. I have
Mm-hmm.
everything, like breakpoints and debugging and literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as soon as you change the code, it automatically recompiles and republish it, and
Got it.
so
Got
I'd
it.
like
Got
to
it.
conduct a small session on that as well, so that it will help community to
Sure,
basically
sure, sure. Because and
efficiently.
this is a very neat the Golang beginners and for any developer it is a very necessary to first they have to prepare their environment so that they can use to
Right.
it, and then it will increase that productivity. So it is a very
Yes.
important thing.
Yeah.
This is a very nice topic you have suggested, of course. So uh, sure, in the near future I'll try to cover these. And yeah,
Great.
so okay, great, Amir. Thanks. Then let me wrap up with this meetup. Uh, Thanks, guys, for to attend this meetup and make it successful. Just suggest me if you have any suggestions for the next meetup. Just please ping me on a LinkedIn or Twitter. DMs are open. And also, if you have any topics, as Amir suggested, like these are the very pretty exciting topics, just ping me over there, and we will have a sure we can organize some meetup around this topic as well. So thank you again, and good day. So see you soon. Bye,
Yeah.
guys.